I know that a lot of people believe, whatever, because that
Andre Rieu is not just a violinist. He is a global phenomenon who transformed the way millions of people experience classical music. Born in Maastricht, the Netherlands, Rieu became known around the world as the King of Waltz, for bringing the elegance and emotion of traditional waltz music to audiences far beyond the walls of traditional concert halls. While many people once viewed classical music as something reserved for formal theaters and elite audiences, Rieu had a different vision. With his signature violin, charming stage presence, and his famous orchestra, the Johann Strauss Orchestra, he turned classical performances into spectacular celebrations filled with romance, humor, and unforgettable melodies. His concerts brought the works of composers like Johann Strauss II back into the spotlight, introducing generations of listeners to the beauty of waltzes that once filled European ballrooms. From grand arenas to outdoor festivals, Rieu proved that classical music could create the same excitement and connection as any modern musical event. With lavish stage designs, colorful costumes, and thousands of fans singing along, Andre Rieu transformed the traditional orchestra experience into a worldwide entertainment spectacle. His mission was simple: make people smile, bring families together, and show that classical music belongs to everyone, not just a select few. Today, he remains one of the most successful classical musicians in the world, admired not only for his violin skills, but also for his ability to turn centuries-old melodies into living, emotional experiences for millions of people. Andre Rieu was born on October 1, 1949, in Maastricht, the Netherlands, into a family where music was not just a passion. It was a way of life. His father, Andre Rieu Sr., was a respected symphony conductor who led orchestras with discipline and precision. Growing up in such a musical household meant that Andre was surrounded by classical music from an early age. However, his childhood was not always filled with the warmth and freedom often associated with creativity. His father was known to be a strict and demanding figure, placing great importance on discipline, perfection, and musical excellence. Some accounts describe the household as emotionally reserved, with affection expressed less openly than through achievement and musical training. For young Andre, music became both a challenge and an escape. He began violin lessons as a child and quickly developed a deep connection with the instrument. While the strict environment shaped his discipline, it also influenced his later vision of music, one that focused not only on technical perfection, but also on emotion, joy, and bringing people together. Years later, Andre would create a style completely different from the formal atmosphere of his childhood. Instead of making classical music feel distant or intimidating, he wanted audiences to experience it as something alive, joyful, and accessible. The contrast between the serious musical world he grew up in and the celebration-filled performances he became famous for became one of the defining stories of his career. After years of intense musical training, Andre Rieu continued his studies at prestigious conservatories, including the Conservatoire Royal in Liège and the Conservatorium Maastricht, where he developed his skills as a classical violinist. Like many young musicians trained in the traditional European style, he entered a world built around discipline, precision, and strict interpretation of classical masterpieces. After completing his education, Rieu began working as a professional orchestra violinist, performing in established ensembles and following the traditions that had shaped classical music for generations. He gained valuable experience on stage, learning the technical demands of orchestral performance and the importance of musical detail. But over time, Rieu began to feel that something was missing. He admired the beauty of classical compositions, yet he became frustrated by the formal atmosphere surrounding them. To him, concerts often felt distant and serious, with audiences expected to remain silent and emotionally reserved. Rieu believed music was meant to create connection, happiness, and shared experiences, not simply showcase technical perfection. He wanted to bring back the excitement and elegance of the old Viennese waltz tradition, where people danced, celebrated, and felt emotionally connected to the music. This desire eventually pushed him to take a different path. Instead of accepting the limitations of traditional orchestral performance, Rieu began imagining a new kind of concert experience, one where classical music could be entertaining, emotional, and welcoming to everyone. That vision would later lead him to create his own orchestra and completely change the way many people viewed classical music. What started as frustration with the old rules of the genre became the foundation of a worldwide musical revolution. In the late 1980s, Andre Rieu decided to take a bold step that would change the course of his career. Instead of following the traditional path of performing only within established orchestras, he created his own ensemble, the Johann Strauss Orchestra, with a very different vision for classical music. Founded in 1987, the orchestra was built around Rieu's belief that music should not feel distant or intimidating. He wanted audiences to do more than simply sit quietly and listen. He wanted them to smile, clap, celebrate, and even get up and dance to the melodies that had once filled the grand ballrooms of Europe. Drawing inspiration from the romantic elegance of Johann Strauss II's waltzes, Rieu created performances that combined classical musicianship with the energy of a live entertainment show. The orchestra featured elegant costumes, beautiful stage designs, and a warm theatrical atmosphere that made every concert feel like a celebration rather than a formal recital. But this new approach was not welcomed by everyone. Some members of the classical music establishment criticized Rieu, arguing that he was making serious classical works too commercial and turning traditional music into entertainment. Purists believed the strict rules of classical performance should remain untouched. Rieu, however, saw things differently. He believed that keeping classical music alive meant allowing it to evolve and reach new audiences. Instead of limiting waltzes to concert halls filled with experienced classical fans, he brought them to people who may have never attended an orchestra performance before. That gamble eventually paid off. The Johann Strauss Orchestra became a worldwide success, proving that classical music could attract massive audiences when it was presented with emotion, passion, and a sense of joy. Andre Rieu's experiment was no longer seen as a rebellion against tradition. It became a new tradition of its own. By the 1990s, Andre Rieu's unique approach to classical music had grown from a local experiment into an international sensation. What began as a small orchestra with a simple mission to make people fall in love with waltzes again soon became a worldwide movement that reached audiences across Europe, North America, Asia, and beyond. Unlike traditional classical performances that often focused on strict formality, Rieu's concerts felt like spectacular celebrations. His elegant costumes, emotional violin performances, colorful stage productions, and the infectious energy of the Johann Strauss Orchestra attracted millions of viewers who had never considered themselves fans of classical music. During the late 1990s and 2000s, Rieu became one of the biggest-selling classical artists in the world. His concert DVDs and albums reached audiences on a massive scale, bringing famous waltzes and orchestral pieces into homes around the globe. Television broadcasts of his performances introduced his music to millions more, turning him into a household name. His success also allowed him to invest in preserving the history and beauty that inspired his music. In Maastricht, his hometown, Rieu purchased and restored the historic Castel de Torrentius, a centuries-old estate that became both his home and a reflection of his love for European elegance and tradition. But behind the fame and financial success was a larger achievement. Andre Rieu had changed the perception of classical music. He proved that orchestral performances did not have to feel distant or exclusive. They could be emotional, entertaining, and shared by people of all ages. From a young violinist challenging the rules of the classical world to a global superstar filling arenas with thousands of fans, Andre Rieu turned the timeless sound of the waltz into a worldwide celebration. In 2010, Andre Rieu faced one of the most challenging moments of his career, not because of declining popularity, but because of a sudden health battle that threatened his ability to perform. The world-famous violinist was diagnosed with vestibular neuritis, a condition affecting the inner ear that can cause severe dizziness, balance problems, and difficulty with movement. For a performer whose entire career depended on standing on stage, playing the violin, and connecting with thousands of fans, the condition was a serious setback. The illness made performing extremely difficult, forcing Rieu to make the painful decision to cancel a major concert tour. The cancellation came at a huge cost. Behind the scenes, a large-scale international tour involves enormous expenses, including production crews, stage equipment, travel arrangements, venues, and hundreds of people working to create the spectacular concerts fans had come to expect. With shows postponed and commitments disrupted, the financial impact was significant. For someone known for bringing joy and energy to audiences around the world, being unable to perform was emotionally difficult as well. Rieu had built his identity around live music, and suddenly he was forced to step away from the stage and focus entirely on recovery. But the crisis also revealed his determination. After treatment and rehabilitation, Rieu gradually returned to performing, proving that his connection with music was stronger than the obstacle he faced. His comeback showed the same resilience that had defined his career from the beginning, the willingness to challenge expectations and continue sharing his passion with the world. The 2010 health scare became a reminder that even global superstars can face unexpected challenges. But for Andre Rieu, it was only a temporary pause in a career that would continue to inspire millions. In 2010, Andre Rieu experienced one of the most difficult periods of his extraordinary career when a sudden health problem forced him away from the stage. The legendary violinist was diagnosed with vestibular neuritis, an inner ear condition that affects the body's balance system and can cause intense dizziness and difficulty maintaining coordination. For most people, the condition would be a serious personal challenge. For Andre Rieu, it threatened the very foundation of his career. His concerts were built around live performances, where he stood in front of thousands of fans, played the violin, and led his orchestra through complex musical arrangements. The loss of balance and stability made performing nearly impossible. As a result, Rieu was forced to cancel a major tour, disappointing fans around the world and creating a massive logistical and financial setback. His concerts were not simple performances. They involved large orchestras, international travel, stage crews, equipment, and months of preparation. When the shows stopped, the costs continued.